was since the second half, really, how much they've really struggled. Charged with finding some stability from this guy.
Welcome back to the next episode of the journey of a grassroots rugby coach. And today, my guest is Peter O'Donnell. Peter is based in Dublin and is the founder of the Lineout Lab. He's coached all levels of rugby, including schools, club rugby. He's coached in the Leinster Pathways, and he's also coached with the Ireland women's team. Peter completed his Masters in S&C and is currently studying to be a teacher. During the chat, we spoke about keeping sessions enjoyable and what he does for coach development. He also gave us a good rundown on the Lineout Lab and what services he provides through that. He also had some tips for coaches that are coaching the line-out throw. As a set-piece coach, I thoroughly enjoyed this chat with Pete and could have spoke to him for hours. We've actually connected a few times and had a few good chats around the line-out and some set-piece stuff. Feel free to reach out to Pete at the Lineout Lab, or all the links are in the show notes. Again, thanks for your support. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Feel free to pass this on to anybody that you feel can benefit from it. Give us a rating, give us a thumbs up. That's how the algorithm works. Sit back and enjoy my chat with Peter O'Donnell.
And I remember getting a great quote from a guy who he went over to Shadow about 9 years ago, and he said he's speaking in his thick South African accent. He goes, "If you can't enjoy coaching the pissing rain on a wet Tuesday night, then you're in the wrong place." So basically, if you can't enjoy it, like in the middle of it, like if you can't enjoy coaching like the thirds or the fifths or the sixths on a wet Thursday night, then you're in the wrong place. I think that's, even whether it's at that level or whether it's higher up, I think you've got to be enjoy doing what you're doing. And then the other thing I thought of as well was that I heard a good one recently. He's an influencer. I won't say who he is because I'd be embarrassed to say who he is, but he has a quote where, someone else's, your chapter one is your chapter 1 or your chapter 10 is different for someone else in their book and their journey. So don't be worrying about other people. So I think that was quite a good aspect or quite a good way of looking at it. So
He can't find it. That's a mighty shot. A mighty man, Leicester.
All right, mate. Well, we might make a start.
Yeah, cool.
All right, Peter. So thanks for joining me today. Just briefly for the listeners who might not know who you are, just who are you and where are you? What's your involvement in the grassroots game?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me on, Andy. Looking forward to it. So Peter O'Donnell, where am I? I'm based in Dublin, in Ireland, and I'm currently coaching with not as many teams this year. I've actually gone back to study, so I'm coaching with the school team, and I'm also coaching with the club team. So my commitment level is restricted this year because of study and family commitments. So I'm only able to commit a fairly limited amount. I can't go to all the games that the club I'm working with, but I guess over the years I've been heavily involved in the school and the club's game, and worked in various different backgrounds with let's say with the Irish women, with the Leinster Pathway, the club game, a number of clubs in the top couple of levels in the Irish club game, I should say, and as I say, the schools game is quite a strong tradition in Ireland, a bit like Australia, as I'm sure you see it over there. But so it's quite a lot of very different background and various different teams I've worked with over the years.
Yeah, nice. Thanks for that, mate. And you also do a lot of stuff around the line out and that, which we'll get into very soon, which is sort of how we connected a while ago. But how did you get into coaching in the first place?
So it was funny. I was probably one of those annoying players, I'd say, as a school kid, who just had a thirst for knowledge and ideas, and maybe would show ideas at coaches, and probably to burning their ear off. So I probably always had the mindset. I like to kind of think my way through a game and try and see things happening as they're happening. I wouldn't say blessed, but I was probably cursed more like it, like a lot of front row forwards. I ended up in the front row, but I was probably really an out half trapped in the front row's body, in my in my own head anyway. And I always, now that said, I actually always enjoyed the nuts and bolts, like the scrummaging, maul. I enjoyed the breakdown. I enjoyed those aspects, but whenever I got an opportunity to run with the ball in hand, that was what I loved about the game, and making decisions and trying things out. So I really enjoyed those aspects, and probably played. I think I played every position as well. When I was in school at some point. So, but basically, when I finished school, my past pupils, they kind of tried to keep the past pupils involved in a bit of coaching. So I did about 6 weeks. I remember when I was the first year in college, but it was on the other side of the city, and I think I was enjoying college life too much. But at the end of that summer, I ended up going to Australia actually the first summer out of school, and the second summer out of school I went to New Zealand to play rugby, and I was in Christchurch, and the guy who was looking after us, he said, "Look, our local school are looking for the under 15D team. Are looking for a coach. Would you fancy doing a bit?" And so myself and two of the other guys got involved, and well, one of them dropped within the first session. He said, "I'm not working with this at this level," basically. And me and the other guy kept going, and I think just from that first session, having done a little bit after school, and just as I say, being distracted by college and all that, I probably didn't realize I had as much of a passion for that when I stepped into New Zealand, and I just loved it, absolutely loved it. They were just a great bunch of lads. They had no coach for the first couple of months of the season, and they were just so hungry and energetic and wanted to have fun and get better, and that was really enjoyable. That really kind of gave me the I suppose the passion for it, I guess. And as soon as I got back to Ireland, then I've been pretty much coaching since.
Yeah, nice.
So.
Yeah, they're pretty passionate about it in New Zealand.
Yeah, well, particularly that school, because that school was Aaron Major and Dan Carter and all those guys had gone through it. So that was it I'm gonna get the name wrong, I know, but Old Boys or Boys High School. That was it. Christchurch Boys High or something like that.
Christchurch Boys High, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So that was a pretty good experience working in that environment. So
yeah. No, that's good, mate. And it's interesting the paths we take to get into coaching. Again, are very varied for a lot of people. So what's some lessons you've learned from some heartbreaks or disappointments you've had in that time as a coach? And the reason I ask that is, of course, as coaches, we've all had disappointments and heartbreaks, but it's our ability to be able to go, yeah, that was pretty shit. But what do I take away from it and make myself better? Or what would I do different next time so that doesn't happen? Because I think the coaches that can do that well, do well. And that's where a lot of coaches just go, no, that's it. This isn't for me. And they just walk away from it.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting. Actually, I was going to throw a question at you. Do you think, sorry, so maybe we can kind of come back to that. That's kind of more, bigger picture. It's not necessarily the grassroots, because we see obviously a lot of ex-professional players get into the game. Do we think we'll see do you think will we see a shift of that, where maybe they'll have to earn their stripes a bit more? So that's kind of the question is going to see, just because you see a number of people have gone into the game, but I'd say within 5 years, I'd be interested to see how many have actually exited the game, or not the game, but exited the top level. I wonder will we see a shift, but that's probably a bigger discussion later on. But
no, we can, because I've got some thoughts on that, and I've spoken to some people on that. So
plenty of heartbreaks.
So we'll do the heartbreak stuff, and then we'll come back to players converting into coaches.
Yeah,
it's fascinating.
Yeah, I think I was thinking about this as well, like the heartbreaks I've had. Like I've had probably like a lot of coaches. Like I was very fortunate that I've worked with so many different teams. So I've worked in a number of different schools, a number of really good schools. But they're all really good schools in their own way, and each have had highs and lows.
Yeah.
So I've had some really great moments with each team, and then some really disappointing moments with each team. So there's no, and even in the club game, like think of the last time I was a head coach. So when COVID hit, I basically stepped back from kind of head coaching a big team, let's say, just to I kind of wanted to concentrate in the Lineout Lab and see if I could kind of get that growing. I was trying to make a move into the professional game, so I wasn't really focusing too much on the Irish club game. I felt I'd always get an opportunity here if I wanted. I was trying to think, maybe outside of Ireland, but I think up until that point, I'd had maybe the previous club I was a head coach of. It was probably disappointing the way things finished, because I think it was a great project and it was a really great club. They were based in Connacht, so we had a lot of Connacht professional players, academy players, and development players play for us, and it was a really good opportunity for me. I'd moved from a club where I'd done quite well, and we'd won a lot of things, and that's probably why they reached out to me and asked me to come in. But when they asked me to come in, it was very late in the day, so it was mid-July over here, which would be pre-season for most teams. Probably starts the start of July. So there's no recruitment done, there's no planning done, there's no nothing basically. I remember even having a discussion with them and said, well, look, who's doing the S&C? And they said, oh, we thought you'd do it, was their response. And I said, well, if you want, I could do it. I mean, technically I have a master's in strength and conditioning, not that that's anything to brag about. I did that because I wanted a sport qualification, and that's actually how I fell into the line out throwing stuff. So we can kind of get into that, I guess. But that was 10 years before, and I just wanted to do something in sport at the time. It wasn't that I wanted to be an S&C coach. It gave me, I wanted a qualification, so I could understand it basically. But so that was their response, and I said, okay, who's the backs coach? Oh, we don't have one. Okay, so basically what I'm saying is that they were really a great club in many ways, but just not quite as organized as they would have liked. And in fairness, they'd gone through a bit of a transition because they'd just been relegated from the top division. They were in the second division, which we call it 1A and 1B over here, and then 2A, 2B, 2C. So they were a 1B club, and it was a real challenge from that perspective to kind of work with them and try and bring it all together. And I felt we did a lot of really good things, but then the second year we probably didn't make the strides that I wanted to, and I kind of look back at myself. It was disappointing that we didn't. And you take a bit of blame yourself and you go, well, maybe I didn't do enough work on the relationships. Maybe I didn't bring enough people in. I was commuting, which is it's not too far in Australia terms. It's only down the road, but in Irish terms, it's an hour and 15, an hour and a half, from where I was based, family home. And I think it made it a bit harder that I wasn't living in the area. Maybe not that you have to be, but probably would have liked to spend a bit more time in the area, I think. I was over in Galway quite a lot, which would be on the other side. That'd be an extra hour going the same way from where I live. So I was on the road a lot, but probably spread myself too thin, was doing too much. I think I tried to do too much, and I loved that in the first year, but I probably needed to offload a lot more of it the second year. So I'd say the mistakes I made were, it was heartbreaking the way it finished. I mean, all very amicable, and I was probably not going to do a second year just because too much going on and at home, and I just thought, I would have liked to have done more and done better with them, and I felt that. So that was really disappointing, because they are a good club and they're on the way back up now. They got promoted there last year and they're in good hands. But so I felt I did a lot of really good things, but just didn't get the benefits of the work that I put in. So that was disappointing.
Yeah, but it's a good point that you made there. And sometimes I've been in that situation too. You look back and you got this team, that team, this team, that team, and all of a sudden you just go, oh, what team am I coaching again? And you spread yourself so thin that you can't actually give the best to any of them. So that's probably something I'd take away from. And I've looked at that a couple of times. It's just on, a couple of opportunities come up and you just go, I'd love to do it, but I just can't fully commit because of everything else. So that's a good lesson that some of us learn and some of us don't, unfortunately, and we end up burning out and then just walking away from it.
And I think like I could have. You look at, should I've made some harder decisions in terms of some of the coaches I was working with the second year? Should I have changed things up a bit? Should I have taken more on, or should I have not necessarily taken more on, but I should have taken on less, and should have worked harder on trying to bring everything together, because it was a disconnected club. So, for example, they had no third team. They had a dysfunctional seconds. The 20s they'd put a huge amount into it, but they'd no other teams after that. And because we had a lot of Connacht players over the years, there was basically what the players would have said to me, was a very soulless environment. for a few years. Now that was on the back of, in fairness, it probably wasn't that long. They had one really bad year, and they got promoted the previous year on the back of a guy called Jordan Conroy. He scored 18 tries and 22 tries in 18 games, something ridiculous. Like, so, I mean, he did pretty well for them, but like they probably didn't have, on the basis of them getting promoted, a lot of guys lost their contracts with Connacht, so they lost about 15 guys.
Yeah.
And the club guys that were left, like they were low in confidence, a bit disenfranchised, because they didn't like the idea of just guys coming along and not buying into the club. So I guess I made a big push to try and get a third team, try and bring the 20s involved into the senior setup. But that brought a lot of disharmony as well for other reasons, in terms of who plays where and what team is most important after the first team, and where do your seconds fit in, and the seconds were really struggling. So there was a lot of challenges. Then we didn't have enough bodies on the ground to do the work, and so I probably I don't even, it's hard to say sometimes what all the lessons were, because there was so many different aspects to it, but it was a really good experience and I loved it. And I would have kept going because I really enjoyed the players, but it was probably right not to, because there was just too many things to fix. It probably needed something different. But I think it gave, like, it's funny, the guy who was the club captain, we still speak the odd time, but he said to me, "It's funny, Peter, I never thought you'd see the benefits of the work you put in your time," basically.
Yeah.
So he'd played for Connacht, and he played Irish in the 20s, and he had to cut his Connacht career short in the end through injury. But he's a really good guy, a really good club player. But he had a good head and a good brain for the game, so he could see the work that was going in terms of trying to bring everything together was really positive. But it just was going to take longer, because there was a lot of internal stuff before I got there that was still sifting its way through and trying to find its role and its identity as a club.
Yeah, and that's difficult when you walk into that environment, because that can take years to change some of those things that are already in place. And and like you said, you were expected to do the S&C. Like, if you've got more than one hat on at that club, it makes it really difficult to change. Because, like, if you're the S&C guy, that's all you've got to change. But if you're this coach and that coach, you're trying to change all these, like you said, a little bit of what's happened in the last couple of years. And it can be quite difficult. I've been at clubs where I've been the only coach for that team, and it's just like, it can get quite exhausting. But you enjoy it, and you walk away from it. You go, I just need a break from it. I've just had enough. So that's good, mate.
Yeah.
Pro players becoming coaches.
I can see this is a soft one.
Yeah, and it is. I've probably changed my thoughts about it over the years as I've got more experienced as a coach. When I was a younger coach, it used to annoy the crap out of me that these guys had just finished playing, and then they'd walk in and they'd get this job or that job, and you go, "Mate, I've been here for 4 or 5 years," or I'm building a CV here, and this guy comes in, and how's he got coaching experience? He's only finished playing last year, and but then I've sort of changed my tune a little bit, because I've spoken to a few guys that have had experiences with professional players coming into that coaching environment as soon as they finish playing, and they said what those guys bring is contemporary knowledge, and they often know how to read the room really well, like in when you do an analysis and stuff like that. So this guy I was talking to, he actually got the ex-players to do a lot of the message delivery, because they knew, like, they potentially got that connection with the group anyway. So but it's a tricky situation to be in.
I think it's not that I was probably a bit resentful for a while, and my ambition for a long time was, I was really just focused on trying to be a professional rugby coach. I mean, I am professional in name, and that I have my own company, and I've been working for myself as a rugby coach for 10 years before I kind of stepped into, go back into study. And and go down a route that's kind of aligned, but maybe, slightly different. But I yeah, definitely would have over the years would have been a bit resentful of different people getting opportunities, and you kind of go, oh geez, I'd love to be doing that. And then probably, over the last couple of years, you kind of just go, well, one, I'm not so sure the professional game is all it's cracked up to be. The grass is always green on the other side. Two, you've a family, and I think things are a little bit different. You want to, provide a bit of stability and make sure you're there for your kids as well as much as possible, which is really, really challenging in the professional game. And even the things I'm doing now, it's still challenging.
Yeah.
I guess probably not trying to. I think what I realized, one of my biggest mistakes, even though it's probably not, it's kind of linked maybe to your previous question. I think I was probably chasing it too hard for too long, that I didn't enjoy the game as much. I didn't enjoy the coaching aspect as much. I was just, not enjoying the day to day sometimes, or not. Yeah, but the love and the passion wasn't quite as there as it should have been. It was, I think the game should still be enjoyable. And I remember getting a great quote from a guy who he went over to Shadow about 9 years ago, and he said, he's speaking in his thick South African accent. He goes, if you can't enjoy coaching in the pissing rain on a wet Tuesday night, then you're in the wrong place. So basically, if you can't enjoy it, like in the middle of it, like if you can't enjoy coaching like the thirds or the fifths or the sixths on a wet Thursday night, then you're in the wrong place. I think that's, even whether it's at that level or whether it's higher up, I think you've got to be enjoy doing what you're doing. And then the other thing I thought of as well was that I heard a good one recently. He's an influencer. I won't say who he is because it'd be embarrassed to say who he is, but he has a quote where, someone else's, your chapter 1 is your chapter 1 or your chapter 10 is different for someone else in their book and their journey. So don't be worrying about other people. So I think that's quite a good aspect or quite a good way of looking at it. So, and then sorry to go back to your other, what you said was, I think someone like, for example, like I use an Irish guy like Johnny Sexton. Like, I mean, if he wants to get into the professional game, he's got a huge amount of value. Like, why wouldn't you tap into that?
Yeah.
So I think where I think some of the professional guys struggle is just that the man management, the relentlessness of it, the planning, the prep, and I think they've probably obviously got a good skill set and a good knowledge, but then it's all the other bits, which, I don't think that technical knowledge that you spoke about, or that detailed knowledge, yes, it is contemporary and it's relevant, but then that changes next year.
Yeah.
So what skills are they going to bring then? And I think it's all the other stuff. And I think that comes with, comes with time, to be honest with you. I don't think it necessarily comes quickly or easy,
Yeah. And it's interesting because some players, like professional players I've spoken to, they went, I have no interest in coaching. Like, because the way the game is now, like it's, 5-6 days a week. Like you said, they're often away from their families. They're this, they're that. I many years ago, I spoke with an ex-Wallaby captain, and we went, why aren't you coaching? He goes, mate, I just want to spend time with my family and my kids. He said, I go down and help my son's under sevens. And I thought, imagine being that coach of your local under sevens, and the ex-Wallaby captain walks in and stands next to you on the sideline. You just go, oh my God, what is, and he apparently just watches and that. He said he's done his years of all that planning and prep and stuff like that. So, but I think they like you said, they can bring something in around their knowledge of what's required at that level. Like I said, if you had Johnny Sexton or those guys at that level sort of come and go, oh, I'm interested in coaching. Okay. You're not gonna say no. So I've changed I was a bit like you at the start, mate. I was a bit like, why do these guys get a free run and this and that? And then you think, they've probably done as much coaching anyway as players as what we have anyway. So
well, it'd be just, I'm interested. Sorry, going back to when I threw the question at you earlier, it was like, well, if you look at so whatever guys getting into the game straight after, it's more, can they keep up with it? Like if you look at football, look at Steve Gerrard and him recently, even Frank Lampard or Wayne Rooney. So I mean, I used to be a huge football lover, and I kind of go through cycles of it. I find it really hard to enjoy the game, but I really enjoy the back end stuff, anything to do in the background, and whether it be the economics of it or whether it be the the coaching of it, everything else basically. I really like. But if you look at some of those guys now, okay, Lampard's got an opportunity. He's back with Everton, I think. But you look at Gerrard, like what's going to happen to him potentially? I'm sure he will get another opportunity, but how long will he be on that? That train or that cycle of who's on the list of get the Rolodex out, who's the next list of 5 coaches that this opportunity goes up. Okay, so let's throw these 5-10 names that one of these guys that that bookmakers will be onto it and say it'll be one of these guys, so, or is he gonna go down and go back up? I don't know. I mean, I'm just interested in something like that, or will he just step out of the game? I'd say he probably stay in the game, but there's plenty of people I think that they give it a go, but then I just think you look at, again, use two Irish examples of some like a Dennis Leamy, for example, who's now coaching at Munster. He's stepped out of the game and he's coaching junior rugby. He's done a bit of stuff with Munster age grade. He's done a bit with went to Leinster in the academy. Then he moved up. Moved up, and then he's moved back down to Munster. So like he's done a huge amount. So he's in a very good position now in terms of he understands people probably a lot more differently, and not whatever about people's personalities. You learn so much about working with, I think, the more environments you can work in, whereas you've only worked with pro players, you only know one environment. I think that can be limiting in itself. But I think, I mean, I'm a bit like you, and for myself, like I kind of feel like if an opportunity presented itself, and one of the things kind of come up last year, which I was ready to kind of jump at, but it wasn't necessarily right. And you kind of go, right, well, maybe, if it happens down the line, maybe we'll see if it works, but I'm not chasing it like I used to. So I don't need to be resentful anymore, but not even about that. I'm just joking about that.
And I think it's a big issue for a lot of coaches, and it would depend where you were. Like where we are in Melbourne, there's not that many coaching opportunities. So if an ex-pro player came in sort of straight away and went, oh, they're going to give them this, you just go, well, where in like Brisbane or Sydney or those other places where there's a bigger player mass, it's just like it might not be as felt as much, but it's, I suppose there's still got to be a right fit for what you want, for what the club wants anyway. So
I think I see it. I don't know if you have the same thing over there. I see it with some schools and clubs, is that they'll hire someone, not even, this is it's amateur or participation, and they'll hire someone who is a bit of a name, and I've seen it in Ireland and the UK occasionally, and you kind of go, well, is he a good fit? He may well be a good fit, but and it may work out to be a good fit in time, but may not either. And you kind of wonder. You see there's opportunities that have come up, let's say director of rugby roles, and you kind of just you throw questions and you go, well, how would you know if that guy's a good fit just because he's been in the professional game? You have a lot of good ideas, but there's so many other aspects to it, like a lot of. I remember there's actually a player said this to me, as well. He goes, a lot of players, they're just used to told, like, go here, go there, go there. This is your schedule for this month, next month after that. But they don't have to do it themselves, So to go and then map that out is a different skill. I'm not saying they can't acquire it. But I think I feel some schools and clubs just pick someone because they've got a good name and that'll attract people, and maybe there's nothing wrong with that. Like, I mean, like if they're trying to attract players, what's wrong with it? So it's not a bad thing, is it?
No, and you're right. You look at the pro players; they'll work from the end of the season. Say it's March, so they'll look at, I've got now this many weeks off, and then X amount of time for pre-season, then a break, and then blah 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 through to round one. But when you're coaching, you're starting at round one, and you're working back. You're doing the opposite. Like I said, that planning thing where the players just go, okay, I've got to be here. I've got to be at the airport at this time. Where the coaches are going, well, I've got from this game, I've got to work all the way back. So we've got, we're getting everything covered, and all that stuff that goes in it. So and I think that's why a lot of players just, they're not interested in it because they've lived such a structure for so long as well. So
I think society's kind of changed as well. I think it's evolved, and I think it's a lot more. I think the professional game is a lot more intense now, and it's heavily scrutinized, and maybe players are getting fed up with the game as well, and because it is a business and a job for a lot of them, so they're trying to make money, and that often, going back to that kind of passion aspect, it can sometimes challenge that. But and I probably didn't need to I didn't want to come across as too resentful towards. That was definitely a good few years ago, but it's just one of those things that's always in the back of your mind. So when I was younger.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I was the same. I've changed over the years, but mate, there's coaches I wouldn't coach with, for whatever reasons as well. That I respect greatly, but I just go, I couldn't work with you because we coach similar things, and there's a whole, there's a whole thing that you sort of go through to make sure you get the right fit where you can be.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Lineout Lab, mate, and your passion for the Lineout, which is where we first connected. I don't know, probably 12 months ago during lockdown, during that lovely COVID. So
yeah,
what is the Lineout Lab? What services do you offer? And probably the thing that got me into that side of it, there's not a lot of coaching around that hooker role. Like we get, you can teach props to do this and this, but the actual dynamics around the hooking, like even away from the throwing of the line out as well, because that's there's a lot goes into that as well. It can be quite daunting for coaches that have potentially never had their head in that dark place, or never thrown to a line out, or never, don't even know what's going on there. And there's plenty of coaches out there that just go, mate, I don't know what goes on in there. I'm an attack coach. I tell you where I want the ball and you give it to me. So it can be quite daunting for coaches that don't know anything about it. So
like I suppose if I go back kind of maybe a step, so I went back. I was probably my last proper job, and I was doing a master's distance learning and strength and conditioning, and I did it over 3 years. And I didn't, as I said, I didn't want to be a gym coach or a strength and conditioning coach. I kind of wanted to understand it from, if I was in charge of a program or anything like that. But within that, I found like the smallest part of the course was skill acquisition, and I was able to use the lineout throw as my skill. I didn't even have to use like an Olympic lift or a plyometric movement or any kind of speed activity or anything like that. I was able to use that, so I was really grateful that they allowed me to use the lineout throw as my skill. And I looked at it. Basically, I looked at it. Is explicit instruction more effective? Is explicit instruction more effective than guided discovery? Was the question, and I kind of researched that, and then I kind of I found a real passion for that area, and that I didn't really know was there. But on the back of that, then I learned, obviously, I was kind of still kind of kept up to date with looking up to some aspects around skill acquisition, and after that, and I got involved in doing some one-to-one stuff over the years as well as team stuff on line-out throwing. Then that's how I was doing stuff in the Leinster Pathway anyway. But then with the Irish women, that's how that started. I was working with a player who, Cliona Maloney was her name, one-to-one with her local club, and then she got picked for the Irish squad. They were looking for someone. I knew a few people involved, got involved with them just as a throwing coach, then become a skills coach, and looked at various different aspects, kicking, passing, decision making, tackling, breaking. Looked at all the, I suppose, a lot of the skill stuff, with the other coaches. And I suppose then when COVID kind of hit, I had the business name already set up. That was there. But I just felt there was a shortage, and I'd done a lot of, as I say, the one-to-one stuff with players, but I guess it probably was a little bit. I felt there was a gap there. I mean, I love coaching attack. I love coaching skills. So I wouldn't have necessarily put the line out ahead of those aspects, but I just felt there was a gap. I like the game. I love the game in general, but I love coaching attack in particular, and I love coaching skills and the line out too. But I probably didn't realize how much I liked the line out really, until I realized there was a gap there. And so I just started making videos basically, and YouTube videos looking at. I started off. I think I did 2 on the throw, and thought they're a bit too niche. So I kind of do my YouTube videos then just started become more analytical, discussion based aspects, sometimes trying to question a few questions, sometimes give my perspective if I was coaching a team, and just trying to mix it up basically, sometimes to infuriate people. So just to generally try to mix it up. And then with Instagram, I kind of looked at it initially, starting to do a bit more kind of coaching aspects. I didn't necessarily plan it that way; it just kind of started that way, or evolved that way. But I guess that through all that, I'd kind of reached out to a lot of people. It's on Facebook, I think it was, and on LinkedIn, and asked them to fill out a questionnaire around the Lineout.
Yeah.
And then if they wanted more information, which I was going to start building this kind of data set, or not that I want to be harassing people with a mailing list, or being on a getting a mail every week or every month or anything like that. But I started keeping contact with these with people. So kind of spawned then, or evolved then into doing kind of a throwing course. And I suppose that's kind of it wasn't the plan at the start, but it kind of just evolved. And I said, actually, this is something which I'm quite interested in, because I had done, when I was doing work with Leinster and the Irish women, I've done a lot of coaching courses, as in delivered on coaching courses over the years, and and I've been in and around education, and that's where I am now at the moment, is education. So I'm in terms of study. So I've always enjoyed that aspect, and so it started off with just doing a showing course it was a Sunday evening for 6 weeks in a row, and that was great. It was really good experience, because you kind of get to know the people, and it's live, so there's a lot of Q&A and discussion, and then at the back of that, I did something over a weekend. I did 2 weekends for the Lineout, so Saturday Sunday. Then I did like a weekend mall course. I did a Lineout defense course. Did something on the kicking game. I was going to do something on the breakdown, but I can't remember now off the top of my head why I postponed that. I think there was something else that when I planned, the dates are coming up, that I had to change it, and then I just didn't get back to it. And then I think lockdowns were eased and all that. So yeah, it kind of started with that. So the Lineout Lab, what we do, or what I do, is there's a few different aspects. So I have a Lineout buddy program where I'll analyze teams' lineouts and that could be working with coaches, it could be working with players, or both. And actually, I just come from a session there last night. I was a couple of hours drive. Again, it's only down the road in Australia, but it's 2 hours, 2 hour drive. 2 hour drive is a long time in Ireland. But a club, really ambitious. I've been working with them pre-season. What started with the coach, he wanted to upskill himself, and it evolved then into working with all his players, and then being up there in person. So, it can. That's one aspect, is that kind of my Lineout buddy, where I'm a tool, and it's all aspects, whether it's throwing, whether it's the Lineout, any other aspects of the game potentially too, but usually generally the Lineout. And then there's, let's say, the online courses that I started with. So I did those ones that I mentioned, but I launched I've one program at the moment, which it's the throwing course. So it's basically the course. Since I did it the first time, I've basically added a lot of stuff in, and tried to make it a lot cleaner and better and more effective, and that's a product you can buy in your own time, basically. And I still welcome a lot of back and forth and questions on that from people who take the course. So because it is challenging. I think it's great that you can do it in your own speed and your own time, but then something was up, you want to ask something to another thing. I want to still be there as that resource too. So that's one aspect, and I'm going to evolve that then into a course for players, and then also the Lineout, and look at the course that I did already. So it's a program you can kind of do in your own time, and I'd like to think that'll be for coaches of all levels. But I'm sure a professional coach, they'll have a lot of good ideas, but I know there's a few professional coaches that did the throwing course and still got some good information out of it. So I think a different voice is always a good perspective. So they're kind of the main two aspects of the online programs, the Lineout buddy. And then I'm still there as a resource to look at throwing and consulting one-to-one, or as a separate entity.
Yeah, and I'll put the links to all that stuff in the show notes, mate. So if anyone wants to reach out to you,
I probably should have said at the start. I could have just said at the start, shouldn't I? And then give you the background.
No, that's all good. So if I was a young coach starting out, I'd never played in the forwards before, what would be some tips you could give me around basic coaching of the Lineout? Probably more at a junior level, rather than at a senior level. Like there's you and another dad as the coach, and you've got to coach a line out? Because like you said, it can be quite daunting. Guys that have done it for a long time still struggle with it sometimes. So
Yeah. Well, I think for somebody who's starting off in that area, I think, what's the function of the line out? And well, for me, I kind of break it down. I look at it, well, first thing we want to do is we want to score a try.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing off a line out. And whether that's, and that could be a maul, it could be a little play off, it could be a phase in or 2 phase in potentially. But that's got to be our mentality. It's there to win possession, secure possession, and we, I've got a positive mindset or an attacking mindset, so I want to use it as a weapon to score.
Yep.
But in terms of, let's say, junior level, it's just to win possession. So there's other things I look at as well. There's kind of 3 things I kind of start with, in terms of, let's say, score try, let's say the our delivery, and then our speed. And they're kind of like that. And you can kind of, within those 3 aspects, you can kind of break them down into so many different levels when you're coaching. So I would start with the same. If I didn't say score a try with a junior team, I'd be saying, well, we want to just win possession. So how do we win possession? Well, let's be quicker. It sounds so simple, but like, speed is a big thing for me, and it can be challenging to do that. So if we can be quick in terms of getting set, in terms of quick in movement, even if the opposition know where it's going, we still have a good chance of winning it. And whilst you're trying to coach those are aspects I think anyone can coach. And then along the way, you're gonna, you can still work on some of the technical aspects of the jumping and the lifting as you're evolving over the weeks and over the season. And then I look at, well, keep your line out short. If you have to do a 2-man line out, or a 2-man line out, or a 3-man line out, what's wrong with that? There's nothing for me. So it's just about trying to win possession. So and how you do that, 1v1 or 2v2 in a race, go for it. Or one guy, whatever it is. It's just because there's no jumping and lifting. You're still winning possession. You can still work on those aspects. So over time, as I say. But yeah, I think I would start with like speed and win possession as your mentality and how you do that. And it's great. It's like, you see it every week with a school team you coach. You'll see someone do something you haven't seen before, or a club team, and you go, well, it might be the 5th division or something, and you go, well, geez, that's really interesting. So coaches are creative. They'll find creative ways to do things. So yeah, I'd say back themselves, and obviously the technical stuff does take time to develop. Like that doesn't happen overnight.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, mate. Be creative with it. You said coaches can get creative. I often set my players a task to come up with a new lineup. And some of the stuff they come out with, you just go, whoa! But some of it's so simple as well, and you just go, yeah, that's going to work. You tweak that and pull that together, and like you said, that can get quite technical.
And they love it, and players love it.
Oh,
So they do. They get a lot out of it. They love that.
Yeah, they do. They really enjoy it because they've got ownership of it, especially like once you get into that under 20s and those senior levels where they can actually be, like you said, it's a weapon to score a try. Because I don't know what it's like over in the UK, but I know here maul defence doesn't get coached very often.
Yeah,
if you can maul well from if you can structure a good maul, you're gonna make yards, because it's very not coached either very well or at all, because it's such a like I said, it's such a technical area of the game.
It's changed. It's funny, going back to that club I was with. I remember having this discussion with one of the assistant coaches. So in our first year, where we struggled in a lot of ways, our lineup was one of the things that, and in fact, the 2 years I was there, we had the best lineout probably in all the leagues, attacking lineout. Our maul wasn't the strongest, and that was more, it was a bit down to, just not being as big, to be honest with you. Sort of thing. There's a few technical things I could have definitely done better as a coach, like no doubt. But generally we in terms of winning the ball, we were one of the better teams. But our line of defense was actually one of those aspects. And it's one of the assistant coaches said, we spend too long in line of defense. And I said, well, we actually don't spend that much time, believe it or not. And the second year when he brought it up again, I said, we actually haven't done it at all this year. So kind of question what sessions he was watching. But we had done it a bit in the first year, but it was more down to, if you can cut a team off at source, why not be competitive? But you look at the pro game now. So since then, I've definitely noticed in the last 2 years, the pro teams are a lot more, line defense are a lot more competitive Maul defenses, I think, have definitely improved in the last 3 years, 3
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
And now I think it's balancing between attack and defense. It's kind of the attack is starting to, I think, come a bit more on top because I think they're better able to deal with defensive systems. But yeah, it's a lot more coached now. But for a long time, non-defense wasn't coached. Maul defense wasn't coached. Really, it was just put your head down and drive, and it still is that aspect. There
Yeah.
still is no
Yeah.
excuse for that, or no substitute, I should say, for that. But yeah, I think it's a lot more coached probably over here, I'd say, than there.
Yeah. And I think that's just the Northern Hemisphere game as well.
Yeah.
It's interesting you brought up there that the coach said, "Oh, you spend too much time on line out defence." I had a discussion with an attack coach, and he said, "Why do you need so much time to coach a set piece? We have like 5 scrums and 10 line outs in the game." And I went, "Okay, no problem. When you don't get the ball 15 times, you complain to me." And he goes, "Oh, yeah, okay."
Yeah.
So it's one of those areas that, yeah, there might be 5 scrums and 6 lineouts in the game, but if you don't win that possession or stop them in defensively stop them, it just kills you.
Yeah.
So
And you might only do like a line out session might only be 10 minutes on a Thursday or 5 minutes. Maybe a few minutes at the end of a Tuesday session. That was one thing I used to like doing, was finishing with units on a Tuesday. If you had to install a few things or introduce a few new things, you could do it at a slower pace. You might used to do a walkthrough before a Thursday session with, let's say, 4 packs. So you had time there as guys are evolving. You kind of maximize your time on the pitch, but didn't always work like that on the pitch for various reasons, because availability and other complications and challenges. But yeah, I think you can find other avenues to kind of get your points across. But yeah, you don't actually have that much time even generally, because you want to try and make your session obviously reflective of the game. So
yeah, and trying to get a scrum half to come and do some line out training over here is near on impossible. And anyway, that's a discussion for another day. No, thanks for that, Pete. That'll be good for some coaches just starting out that potentially get thrown into that role of doing something with the line out, especially with the kids. So how do you keep your sessions enjoyable for all your play? Because you've potentially got, and probably more at the schoolboy level, you've got potentially, that elite player that, or is going to be better than everyone else. But you've got the kid that's there because they've got to participate in something, and they can't play football, or they just turn up to play with their mates. So you've got these two kids on different ends of the skill spectrum, and we've got to develop the kid that's potentially going to go places, but you've got to keep the kid that's not so good involved and develop him, because he's probably going to be the club president, the guy that marks the lines, that guy that's always at the club and doing stuff for you. So how do you keep your sessions enjoyable so that they all get something out of it?
I think there's probably 3 things I try and think of. Well, there's actually maybe more than 3 actually, but I think having the rapport with the players and having being able to you might I suppose have a bit of fun with them, or just talk to them, and I think you might there'll be something that someone says generally that's happened in school that day, for example, and you'll be able to kind of pick up on that, and you kind of obviously the more you get to know and be able to you leverage that relationship. So I think that's important. I think having variation in your training, having competition in your training, I think there are aspects. I think players love that. I think they love when it gets competitive, and where they feel they're learning, where they feel they're valued, they get an opportunity, which is really hard sometimes. I mean, you value them, but they might not always get the reps and the opportunity. I put a lot of onus on the player on players. So whether it's in a unit session or whether it's in a team session, don't wait for me to, like, if let's say the starting team's been named and you're on the bench, I don't say, oh, you roll in there. There will be times I do say that, but I would put the onus on them to take responsibility for their own reps, which obviously still doesn't really happen in the utopian world. That's what happens, but it doesn't always happen. You still have to say it sometimes, but they're still a bit too standoffish, or they're just maybe they're not as bothered, or they're demotivated, or there could be a few different reasons. But I think so I think having the relationship, having, as I say, competition, having, where they feel like they're learning, where they're valued, I think, and a bit of variation in training as well. So I think it could even be a few fun games at the start or at the end, or challenges as part of the competition that you're playing. If you're going team v team, for example. But I think, they're kind of a couple of key things I try and get in. Do I achieve them all? No, I
Yeah.
don't. But you try to, and I even asked myself this last night. I was doing this session with a group I'd never met in person before, and did they have fun there? And I hope that they did. I hope there was some learning aspects. There was other aspects I wanted to throw at them to challenge their learning, but we didn't quite get there. But yeah, with a school team there that I was coach, that I do a bit of training with there last week. You kind of wonder, are they having fun? And I think that's obviously on us as coaches to try and get that. Well, how do we generate that? It's a I wouldn't say it's a high performing environment, but it's an environment that's geared towards producing players to go on and play for their senior team. But even at that, it still needs to be fun, I think. So
Yeah.
I think there's other ways you can incorporate into your session, and you won't get. I think, and sorry, as I say, the cogs are turning. So
Yeah, that's all right.
you can probably hear it in my voice speaking at 100 miles an hour. But I think accepting that they're not going to have fun sometimes is okay. I'm one to try and make sure we're all having fun and everyone's enjoying it, but sometimes you're not going to have fun, and I think that's okay.
Yeah. No, and that's a good point. And I say to a lot of my guys, I said, we set high standards, but we have fun doing it. And then other nights there'll be, like you said, you're doing something, you go, guys, tonight's not, we've got to get this done. It may not be enjoyable tonight, but it will be down the track type stuff.
Yeah.
And I think if you make that clear to them that, tonight it's not, we may not have fun tonight because we've got, whatever it is that we've got to get through and blah, blah, blah. Like it's a heavy content or whatever it is. But they know why as well. Because like I said, they want to challenge themselves.
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of games. Like you said, before training starts, and just get them moving and having a laugh, and then every line out scrum session I do with my boys is attack versus defense, because like I said, it's competition. They love competition, even if they lose, they want to compete.
Yeah.
So,
100%.
No, that's good, mate. Coach development. What do you do, or what recommendations would you have for new coaches starting out around development? And I don't mean like your level one, your level, like the stuff that you do where you go and you sit in the classroom for a couple of days, and we get ticked off to do whatever level it is. The stuff that we do out, and for me, COVID was this great development opportunity because there was just people sitting around, coaches sitting around wanting to keep their minds active and happy to talk to people. So what's some of the stuff you do or you would recommend for coaches around that development space?
Yeah, well, I'd love to read more books if I had the opportunity. It's very challenging right now, but I have to find time to do that. I think that's important, is to keep reading different books and watching different shows on TV. You'll always pick something up and get ideas, and so I generally carry my notebook here, and I'm always writing stuff down, and I think that's important. I think reflection and having purposeful reflection is important. A dedicated, right, this is time for reflection, and actually think about the game, think about where things are at, and try and go down a few rabbit holes. I think that's important. Or those are good ways to go about it. But yeah, I think reaching out to people. So as you said, COVID was great. I got to meet a lot of coaches, and most of them still in touch in some shape or form. Very hard, when some people are on the ground and their day to day is obviously very challenging, but generally it's still in touch with a lot of people and very giving of their time. So I think you'd be surprised that if you wanted to talk about a certain aspect of the game, let's say it's backline attack, there's plenty of backs coaches out there that would give their time. So reach out to them. I think try and leverage a relationship to network and make contact with them. But yeah, I think what I do in terms of right now, it's trying to find the time. I think for a long time I'd stopped the networking even before COVID. I'd stopped networking for a period of time. I was just too engrossed in it. But through previous jobs I've worked in, networking is quite a big aspect. I'd like to think I'm quite a social person. So, taking a leap and sending an email or a letter to someone out of the blue isn't beyond me. I'm used to that. So even before COVID hit, I think it's really important you do try and meet up with our coaches, and I think some people really struggle with that, and I think a lot of people are doing it now, as I say, on the back of COVID. But I think if you can also recognize that you probably have good knowledge, and people say this to me all the time, oh, you're talking to X, Y, and Z, and over the years, and you've got good knowledge there. Do you not trust yourself? And I said, yeah, I do trust myself, but I think you'll always learn something from a conversation.
Yeah.
I think that's okay.
Yeah.
I think so. Still being clear on what you want in the game is important. So I think meeting other people, talking to people is great, but so still, because what they're saying is right. Be clear in your vision of what you want, but then what you want to get out of a conversation. So there's something else you said there in terms of your question there. Just you said again there. Sorry. You said there in terms of what I do for CPD. Yeah. So so there's those aspects, like I mentioned at the start. You might books, it might be a TV show, and it might be something a little bit different. So other sports, I think it's really important. Don't limit yourself to just rugby.
Yeah.
I think that's really, really important. I think I've reached out to other people, especially on the back of throwing. Like I spoke to a number of different throwing people, whether it be a javelin, whether it be shot put or discus, or whether it be a cricket throw, baseball throw, NFL throw, darts. I look at loads of different sports with throwing, and I try to see what I can learn. So I think having a very open mindset, and then also understanding yourself is that you don't have to speak to everyone. Where am I at the moment? So I mean, you could do all these courses, and that's great. But that's try and, as I say, being comfortable with yourself is important, and what you have. And the last thing I'd say as well, sorry, I know I've kind of rambled a bit there, but I think coach as many teams as possible. I think that's the best way to learn. Get involved in many different environments as possible. Coach in the women's game, coach a school team, coach a club team. I was very lucky. I coached in a women's club when I was working with the Irish women, and on the back of working with the club, I did a little bit of work with a girls' school as well. And it was just participation, and it was just trying to make it fun, but it was so challenging, and that's probably where I learned the most in terms of those types of situations. Or even last year I was working with a schools cup team, or a school team in Ireland. I was working with a 20s team, a first team, and a junior team, and that was all great experience. So I think getting your miles in the clock, and that's probably the other thing to look at.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's some good advice there, mate. And if you're not coaching those teams, watch how they're being coached. Like if you can go and just watch another coach. I always say to guys, go and watch the under-8s coach. See how he herds cats, because with those kids, if they're sitting around for 30 seconds not doing something, they're going to be finding something to do themselves.
100%.
And like we talked about games before, and most of it, we call them vibe games or pump up games or whatever. They're all games we got from the under-8s. Like just chasing each other, and the old cone drills and all that. They're games that they played under-8s, and they just love them. So
I think, sorry, there's one thing I kind of forgot to say there. I think having a mentor as well, I think, is a good thing. Whether you're a coach that wants to coach it, if you're a coach that wants to be the best you can be, I think finding a mentor or two mentors is really, really valuable. And then surrounding yourself with people that you want to, people that you want to, that are not that they're necessarily like-minded, but maybe they're similar in that they have a thirst for knowledge. So I remember one thing I did during the COVID was I set up I called it a round table kind of idea. So basically, I had coaches come together who remember coaching the amateur game and then coaching in the professional game. It didn't quite get up and running in the way I would have liked it, but I guess my theory was, well, certainly, I mean, we had a couple of sessions on both sides of it. Trying to, the challenge with that was, with time zones as much as anything. And it probably could have been a bit better around how I kind of arranged one or two things, but it was trying to get it, trying to try something a bit different. But I think the rationale was the same: surrounding myself with people who are going to be challenging, throw questions, and give a perspective and throw something out for debate and discussion. I think that's quite valuable. So I'm going to look to try and do something again like that. I think there's a lot to be learned from that.
Yeah, and I think as young coaches, and I would class myself in this category when I was a young coach, I was too scared to talk to other coaches because I think, they'll think I'm an idiot. Where now it's like, I'll just talk to these guys, and sometimes I go, and other times I go, but have you thought about this, and this? And you just, So don't be afraid to ask. Those stupid questions, because at some point that coach has probably had the exact same question.
Excuse me.
And that's good. Good advice about a mentor too, mate, or a critical friend that you can talk to, and they can give you some honest, or somebody you can bounce things off that'll give you not what you want to hear.
Yeah,
they'll give you the positive, the negative, whatever it is. That's always good.
Yeah, I think probably as well, having a plan in place of things that you want to improve on. So as well, that's probably the other aspect. So like I talk about dedicated reflective time, but having within that period, you could be looking at, well, what are the areas I'm short in. So if let's say it's that junior coach is coaching the lineout. Well, how does he go about coaching the best lineout? Well, look at some of the best lineouts and find out who the best lineouts are in certain countries or certain leagues. Look at how they go about it. What are they doing? Within that, you're kind of looking at some of the technical things. So it might be then talking to a few different lineout coaches as an example, and maybe from different countries, and trying to compare and contrast and see how they view the game. So there's loads of different ways I think you can be creative, but having a plan in place of things that you feel you're short in, or areas you feel you need to develop further.
And that's a good point about having that plan in place, because, and I was talking to a coach the other day about it. They heard someone in a seminar or something, and they go, I didn't really agree with what they said. And I said, that's okay.
Yeah.
He goes, what? I said, mate, if we all agreed with each other as coaches, it'd be a boring game of footy to watch.
Yeah.
And that's where if you've got that plan and you just go, oh, no, I don't actually agree with what that guy said. But what can I take away from it anyway? So just don't blindly listen to people. Have a plan on what you want to get out of it. And the other thing I say to you, mate, if I speak to 100 coaches and learn one thing from each coach, I've learned 100 new things. You talk to a coach and you learn one new thing from them. You're better than what you were before you spoke to that person. So,
well, like even there when you said earlier on, I've done the same thing with, you have a plan in place for, let's say, your preseason, for example, and you go to what's game one, you work backwards. But I would have looked at the same way. You're trying to prepare a player for game one, but I never would have necessarily. I hadn't thought of, or maybe I have at some point, but it just struck a chord with me. I haven't necessarily had the correlation there in terms of how they crisscross each other. So you said that, like, I haven't necessarily thought of it like that. Like, so I probably have subconsciously, but just not in terms of It's one of those moments. Oh yeah, I haven't thought of it like that. So 100%. Like I think talking to people is really important.
Yeah, nice. I like it. All right, mate, last one and I'll let you go. If you could go back in time to that first year that you started coaching, what advice would you give yourself, knowing what you know now?
I think the big thing for me, and it's probably in my personality as well, because it definitely comes across as how I speak, is that I'm often in a rush, and just take your time and enjoy it. I think don't be in a hurry to, and it doesn't matter if you want to be a professional coach or if you want to be an amateur coach, or a youth coach, a club coach, or a schools coach. I think just enjoy it's really important, and keep that enjoyment. And you know, you can't control people. And I remember that I used to work in recruitment, and you can't control people. It's not a product you can just buy and then there it is, does this job. They have feelings, they have emotions, they let you down, they energize you, they sap your energy, you know. So yeah, like I think just being comfortable that it's going to be every session is going to be different, every person is going to be different in every session nearly. And yeah, just recognizing that you're dealing with people, but you try and give them as good experience as possible. If you're able to enjoy it, then I think the vast majority of people will have a good experience.
Yeah, nice. I like it. Yeah, and sometimes it takes us a while to learn those lessons about everyone being different.
I'm still learning it.
Oh, yeah, I know, right? I know. It's probably one of the biggest fears of being a coach when you go to a new club and you just go, I don't know anyone. So you haven't built connections with anyone, and anyway.
Yeah.
It'd be quite daunting.
But there's a great one that you know, I would have done quite a lot of work with, you know, it's still staying in touch with him as well. Andy Friend over the planets. But he had a great line he used to say about how comfort and how what was it again now before I say it? It was basically along the lines of how, you know, adapting, how change and comfort don't live in the same room, you know. So I just always thought that was a good thing. So taking yourself out of your comfort zone is going to make you grow and get better. You might soil yourself, but for a second, but ultimately you'll improve, you know. So
yeah, nice. No, that's awesome. Thanks, Pete. That was really, really good. I think the listeners will get some good tips out of that, especially when that line-out stuff. Like I said, I'll put the links to the Lineout Lab in the show notes, so if people want to reach out to you. I've done the throwing course that you've got online, and I can highly recommend it.
Never move off their own ball. That is monstrous.
Being held at the back by the foot of Ben Norman, kept in and England marching it on. Will they get a penalty? Still there. There is the penalty.
Trying to do the scrum, have you ever seen it? You've seen it being obliterated like that. At this set piece, at this rate, they can be marched all the way to the try line. That was extraordinary. 30 metres scrum.